You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Calling all new school counselors. If you're an intern, just graduated, or recently hired, this is for you. I have a brand new free training series for you called New School Counselor Bootcamp. And this 5-part training will be covering how to make the most of your internship, rocking the interview process, how to prepare your office, setting up for a successful and stress-free school year, and your first 30, 60, and 90-day to-do list. Summer is the perfect time to get started, so go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/bootcamp to sign up. Hey listeners, let me let you in on a little secret. You don't have to stress about planning your class lessons, small groups, and individual sessions anymore. My school counseling membership program, Impact, is here to help. So, what do Impact members get? Monthly curriculum plans across all 3 tiers, SEL lessons, small groups, individual, and seasonal activities, step-by-step video implementation guides, bi-weekly Zoom coaching calls with me, and an exclusive Facebook group community. This membership is designed for school counselors who want to deliver the best possible content to their students, but who also want to just press the easy button. You'll get access to monthly curriculum plans, resources, support, and community so you can deliver quality, engaging, life-changing counseling lessons to your kiddos. So what do you think? Are you ready to make an impact? Join today at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact. Hey y'all, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So remember, for the month of May, I'm showing you different strategies that you can use to reach more students than ever before and to advocate for your role. So last week, I shared with you a scheduling tool that I love, a little scheduling secret called batching. So if you didn't get to hear that one, go ahead and head back to last week. I think you'll find it helpful. If you've been implementing batching, let me know how it's going. I would love for you to send me a DM on Instagram at Bright Futures Counseling and just tell me how it's going. Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Tell me all the things. So I would love to hear from you over there. But today I'm super excited to share with you an organization tool that is super duper simple but extremely effective. And in my opinion, a total game changer for your program. This is actually something I started doing my most recent year counseling at the international school. And I was like, wait a minute, why have I not been doing this all along? And I need to tell everyone else about it. So what it is, drum roll please. It is a counseling log. So it sounds boring, but it's awesome. So basically what a counseling log is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a place where you are going to log your counseling sessions. Now, you can use paper and pen to do this, but like most things, I recommend doing it digitally. Now, there's a few reasons why I like to do it digitally. First is perhaps you are meeting virtually still for a portion of your day, or maybe you're 100% in person. 100% virtual still. So, of course, you're doing everything online. But even if you're 100% in person, I still recommend doing it digitally because if you're doing it on Google, it auto-saves everything. You don't have to worry about losing your work like you would with paper. It's easy to share with others. You can access it across multiple devices. I just find a lot of benefits in doing it this way. So I like to use Google Sheets to create a spreadsheet. And this is where I'll track the counseling log. So I'm going to break it down for you column by column. So if you want to jot this down, we'll also have it in the show notes so you can reference it. Or if you're at your computer now, whip out a Google Sheet and make it as I tell you about it. Okay, so in the first column, it's going to say the date. And so you're just simply going to put the date. And then on the bottom tabs, I like to separate them by month. So that way you don't have the entire school year on one sheet. So have tabs at the bottom for different months, and then you're going to have the date. Now, I even indicate a break line for the week. So I'll have, it's segmented into 4 parts. In the second column, the student name. So this is important to know who you're talking about. In the next column, the area of need. So this is where you're going to put, the reason why you're working with the student. So what area they're working on. So perhaps it's anger management, grief, self-esteem. Now this is, even if they're individual or group, you're going to put the area that they're working on, which leads us to the next column, counseling type. So this is, are they individual or group? So you want to specify. And then the next column is duration. So the duration is the amount of time that your session lasted. Now, you may be thinking, why do we have to put this here? I may already have, my schedule shows individual counseling 30 minutes or whatever on my calendar. Now, that may be the case. You may have 30 minutes blocked off on your calendar, but sometimes the student's late, or you have to factor in travel time, or you may only end up talking to them for 20 minutes because you finish everything you need in that time. So this duration piece ends up being more accurate than the calendar in the end. So think of it this way, like your calendar or your schedule indicates your plan, and then the duration column indicates the reality. So it's kind of like what you had planned, how it started, how it's going, or Pinterest versus reality. I feel like there's all those little things. So it's how it's planned versus the actual amount of time that you saw them. Now in the next column, I like to use strategies used. So this is where you're going to write a brief summary of what you did so you can remember it for next time. Now this is important because if you have a large caseload, which I'm sure many of you do, then you likely aren't going to remember everything you did. And the kid walks in. Some days I'm lucky to even remember all the names, right? That is a personal goal of mine, actually. Side tangent. So historically, my whole life, I've been, bad with names. But now I realize this is like a mindset by me saying, oh, I'm bad at names. I'm kind of allowing myself to be someone who's bad at names. So one day I was like, I'm going to be good at names, especially with counseling. I remember getting a counseling job and I was thrilled, but I literally prayed like, Lord, help me find a way to remember these names, because I know it's going to be so impactful to know the students' names, even the kids I only see in class lessons or around campus, even if I'm not seeing them on my caseload. I know it's really meaningful to make a connection to those kids, and I hate to forget a kid's name. So I remember literally praying, being like, please give me a strategy for doing this. And then I did get, a little better working at the school. But even more recently, around Costa Rica, our town here is very small, and I see the same people a lot. And now that we've decided we're going to be here pretty long term, I believe, I want to make an effort to really get to know, my neighbors and people down the street, people I see at the supermarket, and so on. So I was like, I need to come up with a way to remember people's names. So I've been doing a lot of word association, and the way I remember people's names is completely crazy. But tell me if you do something similar. But I'll be like, oh he's wearing green, which reminds me of, I don't know, Verde in Spanish, which reminds me of this lady I know, Vera, and that's how I remember his name is Vernon or whatever. It's crazy, the ways that I come up with name strategy. So again, total tangent. But I think this is super important. And, when you see so many kids, sometimes it's hard to remember all their names, let alone what activity that you did with them. So I like to do a brief summary of what I did. Now, you don't want to go into too much detail here. This isn't a space for you to write paragraphs, but perhaps it's something where you just write, played self-regulation boom card, something like that. So then the next week you can talk about it, or maybe you didn't finish it. This is also where you can indicate like did, 3 pages of gratitude journal, something like that. Now, then there is a notes column, and I don't always write something in this column, but this is a space that I have on there just in case I want to indicate something extra. So perhaps student temperament. So, Eliza seemed sad today, or maybe a note about something in their personal life they shared, like dog died, cousin in town, something that you want to remember so you can ask about next time, or something important. Now, you do want to keep in mind that your sessions are confidential, so you only want to provide enough information here to be helpful, to remind yourself what was covered. You don't want to share too many personal details of what they're sharing in the session, and this is especially important if you're sharing this document with someone else. So in the past, I've shared this document with a principal, but I still, I kept it pretty brief on what was covered. And again, with the student names, you can just use initials, or whatever your protocol is there to make sure that you're, being as confidential as possible here, but also helpful so you can remember what you did. So there's the notes column for anything, any kind of updates or anything you want to include there, and then the parent communication column. So I only write in this column if I spoke to the parent that week, and then I write the date that I spoke to them and a brief note about what was discussed. So let me explain it, because the dates you might get kind of confused. But let's say that I saw a student on May 5th. So the date at the beginning in that first column is May 5th. And then we'll just go through an example completely here. May 5th, Rachel Davis, area of need, grief, the counseling type, individual, the duration, 20 minutes, strategies used, played grief board game or used grief discussion cards, notes. Rachel seemed in a really good mood today compared to our last session. And then parent communication. So this was on May 5th that I spoke, or I met with her, but maybe you write on there, May 7th, Rachel's mom contacted to share her psych evaluation, something like that. That's a complete example using myself. But so you see how on the parent communication part, it was May 7th, but the date of the session was May 5th. But I include it in that row because that's when that was the closest session to the time that I met with them. Now, I recommend you leave this open on your computer all day. So, contrary to what I was saying about email, how that is a tab you do not want to leave open, you do want to leave open this counseling log. That way you can just type a few sentences in between kiddos to make sure you're staying on top of it without wasting time. So, if you right now, I don't know what your process is for documenting things, but if you're writing pen and paper in between kids, it might take up a lot of time. Or sometimes what you definitely don't want to happen, which I've done in the past, is you wait till the end of the day when you're ready to go home, and then you have to write down notes about everything and try to remember everything that happened. So it's much easier if you're just doing it as you go. Now you may be thinking, well, this is pretty simple, sounds okay, it'll be a good way for me to get organized, but how does this help me reach more students and advocate for my role? Well, in terms of reaching more students, you're going to spend less time figuring out where things are because you're completely organized. You have all of the information about who you saw and the notes on what you did with them and the parent communication all in one place. So you're not wasting time looking for a sticky note, or I think I jotted this down over here, or I need to sit down for an hour to remember what I did with everyone. Instead, you're going to have more time in your schedule to see kiddos, so you can provide those direct services with students, which is your goal, instead of wasting time getting organized, because now you have a clear, efficient way to log your counseling sessions. And this can avoid confusion. You may waste time, with a student, or not make as big of an impact with a student if you can't remember what you did. And at the beginning of their session, you're like, oh, well, hold on, let me dig for that thing, or let me find what we were working on last time. So it saves you time, and saving time provides you with more time to provide direct services to students, which allows you to reach more kiddos. Now, how does this help you advocate for your position as the school counselor? Well, this is a simple way to show how many kids that you're impacting. So this is a way that you can collect data. You probably hear me talk about end of the year reports a lot, especially this time of year. I really like to talk about the end of the year report, but I'll link to that in the show notes if you're curious to what that is. But this is a way that you can collect data to use in your end of the year report. So whenever I teach about, how to track data and use it to advocate for your role, people always say, well, where am I collecting this data? This is a simple way that you can collect data all year long. You will have it all there. You can see how frequently you met with your students, how many minutes you met with your students, which students you talked about, which topics with. So it's a great way to simultaneously collect data, which you can later use to show how many students you're impacting, further advocating for your position. Now, staying organized is also a way to advocate for your role, because you want to show teachers and parents that you are on top of it, that the role of the school counselor is meaningful and valuable and important to the program and important to your school. And one way to do that, or to easily communicate that, is to show how organized you are. I'm not saying you can be, if you're unorganized, you're a bad counselor. I'm definitely not saying that, because I feel like I am unorganized at times, for sure. But what I am saying is that by being hyper-organized and by having good systems in place, you're showing that you're on top of it and you can really communicate the value of your position. So guys, this was a quick episode. I just really wanted to share this tool with you. I encourage you to use it. So send me a screenshot of your counseling log. Obviously blur out confidential information, but show me that you're doing it. I just want to see you using these tools in action. That would totally make my day. I have a freebie for you today. It is a stress-free organization toolkit. So I will link to that in the show notes. Go over there and you can download it, and then you can use it to get more organized. It mentions this strategy along with some other organization hacks that I think you will find helpful in allowing you to reach more students and continue to advocate for your role. Okay, talk to y'all next week.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.